Alrighty, so today's going to be a pretty quick video. I've had some questions asking how I size my 6.5 Grendel brass down to 6mm arc. I've also got a new EP Industries annealer, so I thought it'd be a good opportunity to kind of show both of those methods. So what you see there on the left is a brand new piece of Hornady 6.5 Grendel. Just got this in the mail, snagged it off, I think, Mid-South Shooter Supply. And you see a piece of 6.5 Grendel brass on the right that has been sized down to 6mm arc. So as you can tell, there's a little bit of difference there. So number one, our length on the Grendel brass on your left is about 1.511 inches, and our arc brass, our max overall length is 1.490. So we've got about, 20 thousandths that we need to shave off. Also, our headspace via my measurements, via my tools, we have 1.195 inches for the Grendel brass on the left, and we've got 1.168 on the right. So I'll throw those numbers up on the screen so you can see those. So we need to turn this piece on the left down to the piece on the right. So first step for me is we're gonna run over to the annealer and we're gonna anneal this. Now, the brass that you've been seeing me shoot on the channel, that's 6 arc brass, this has not been annealed. This is a new process that we're gonna add now because I've got the annealing machine. So you can do this without the annealer. It's worked just fine. I don't know how brass life's gonna be, but probably recommend annealing. So let's get over to the annealing machine. Alrighty, so this is the annealing machine that I use. Just got this, I think last week I've annealed some 6 arc brass and some 6.5 Creedmoor brass. So the good thing about this machine is you don't need any extra wheels like the annealies. I think you can anneal 50 BMG down to 300 blackout. As you can see now, we've got the wheel pretty much set up, dialed into where that's gonna spin that piece of brass. We can drop another one in and it's gonna go ahead and anneal them. So now we need to go ahead and set up our flame and timing and things like that. Alright, so I pretty much leave my torch kind of just sitting here. I've got it set up on a nice metal platform that's not going to worry about burning my house down. Okay, so we've got that flame set up. Now typically what I do is have that pretty much set up where it's going to go right on that neck, just ever so slightly. Okay, so I think that's probably just a little bit fast. Down to 34 on our dial here. 35 actually. Okay. Yep, so that looks like we're getting just, you might not be able to see it in the camera, but we're just starting to change the color of the neck, and we're getting a nice annealing line down. Okay, perfect. So I think for me, that's how I set that up. Other people have different methods. Some people use Tempolac, all those different things, but this is what's worked for me in the past as far as picking the timing, and that's what we're gonna stick with here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and roll through all 50 of these pieces. It really isn't too bad as far as, you know, you can't put more than one piece of brass on there right now. It'll kind of drop both of them in there, and that's been just fine for me. It's way faster than using the torch and shell holder method. So, alright, so I'll see you when I finish these 50. Alright, so we just finished our last piece of brass. One thing to note is some of these pieces do get hot. So like for instance, that piece right there, you definitely don't want to touch that right after you've annealed because it's going to be pretty hot. Seems like the machine cools down pretty quick. It does not seem as if a lot of heat transfers into the bottom of the brass from that piece there. I've run a couple pieces through without the torch on after it's been running, and the piece is definitely able to be picked up. So it's definitely not too hot. But as you can see here, we have our 50 pieces of nice and annealed brass, right? As you can see, because this is new brass, we do have that nice color change on there, which I haven't got all of that nice, pretty color change once the brass is clean, but it does look like these are all 50 annealed. It didn't take me too long, maybe 5 minutes to anneal all 50 of these. So let's get back to the bench and get these cooled down and resize them. Alrighty, so here's a closer look at our brass after we've annealed it. Got that nice annealing line just a little bit below the shoulder. Your guys' results will vary. It depends on how close the torch is and all those. Turned out to be between 5 and 6 seconds is what I was happy with here. So then typically what I do is go ahead and transfer this brass over to a cardboard box where I lube all the pieces before we size them. So let's do that. All right, so typically what I do is put them all upright. And again, you can see that one there has a little bit of a bent up neck, which is pretty consistent with new brass coming from Hornady. But I basically set them all upright like this, right? And we'll come back once we get them all set up right. All right, so now that I've got pretty much all of them tipped upright, so we can get some down in the neck. I've been using this Frankfurt Arsenal case lube. I think it's just lanolin and alcohol. Don't have much of it left, but I've been using this without too much issue. I think I've stuck 2 cases, but I think most of those were my fault. So, and I just give it a couple squirts and kind of roll it around, and then a couple more. Stuck in our die. Then we'll move on to the resizing die. All right, so we're gonna resize these. This is I think a Lee breech lock press. It's a pretty affordable press. It's been doing a good job for me. So I've got my die. I think it's already set up from where I was sizing 6.5 Grendel brass in the past. We're gonna go ahead and run this through and see what happens. This is the first piece going through here. So coming down, not a huge amount of work being done. And let's see what our piece looks like. So headspace is now 1.64 or 1.164, which if you look back at our numbers, we were shooting for 1.168. So actually we need to back this die out just a little bit because that is about 4,000 shorter than what we want to be. Back that out ever so slightly and adjust our lock ring there. All right, let's go ahead and run this second piece through. And see where that one comes out. Okay, so we are still looking at 1.165, which is a little bit short. So let's go ahead and back that out again ever so slightly. Okay, next piece here. This is the third piece. Okay, run that through our die. Take a look at our size. All right, so there we are at, so we get it to focus, 1.168, which that's 1,000th off what our brass we're shooting to get it to. So that's good enough for me. So kind of wipe that off and we'll take a close look there. You see that piece of brass, get it to focus. So there's our piece of brass that's resized now. If you look, the neck looks nice and smooth. There's no weirdness going on. Nothing crazy going on with that piece, right? Looks pretty good. Other than the fact that the neck's super long now. But that is our resized 6 arc piece. So let's go ahead and do that to the rest of these. All right, as you can see here, we've got our 50 pieces resized, but they're incredibly long. Let's see how long they are. All right, so each of those pieces is about 1.517 inches. So we need to get that down to at least 1.490. So what is that? Almost 30 thousandths. So the way that I do that is I use the Lee cutter and lock stud kits with the case link gauges. I've used that since I started reloading and it's never caused me an issue. Now the problem with that is they do not, as in Lee does not make the case length gauge for 6 arc. So what I did was I bought a 6 ppc and just trimmed it down ever so slightly because 6 ppc is just a little bit longer than 6 arc. That's worked fine for me. So the way that works is you basically use that cutter and a drill and you trim them down. Now these are going to take us a minute because we're trimming off a lot. There probably is a better way to do this, but this is the way that I've done it. So that also leaves you with a nasty burr around the edge, and obviously you need to deburr and chamfer that. So I use these two, deburr and chamfer, and basically once you get that done there, which it does put a pretty nice burr on the edge because we're cutting so much off. Now a One of the automatic kits would probably be best. Case prep kits would probably be better, but because I do small numbers, as in just a few, like 50 at a time, this works just fine for me. All right, that one's looking pretty good. Let's see what our length is. So there we are, 1.487. So I think that's the way I set this up, just to be below the trim length. You could obviously set that up to go a little bit less if you like your brass a little bit shorter, but that's the method that I use. We'll do that with all 50 of these, and then these will go back in the tumbler, and they will be a finished piece. So if you take a look at that, that is your finished new 6 arc. Just needs thrown in the tumbler, clean all the lube off, and it'll be ready to fire, form, and shoot. All right, so after you've trimmed up all your brass, what you want to do is make sure that it obviously fits in your chamber. Now, this should fit because we've measured head space and length, but you always want to double check to be sure. This is my Savage 110 switchback. That is my 6mm arc that we're going to be shooting. So what I typically do is throw that piece of brass in the chamber and basically see if that bolt will close normal. Now, this one closes just like it should, just like it does in all my other brass, and comes out nicely. So that right there is your completed 6mm arc. So let me know if you guys like this kind of content. I'm thinking about, if people are interested in this kind of stuff, posting some quick videos on Wednesdays that kind of has some tutorials on how I do things. This isn't necessarily the way that you should, but if people have questions, this is the way that I typically reload. Again, comment down below if you like this type of video. We're not going to replace our shooting videos on the weekend. Those are always going to be shooting videos, but we might add some miscellaneous stuff like this during the week. Thank you guys for watching this quick little video, and we'll see you guys on the weekend.